Steve Cully. I'd like to thank our sponsors at Procyon Partners. Procyon, one of the top 50 fastest growing companies in the nation. They specialize in employee benefits, wealth management, and retirement planning. President Sean Rabinowitz, proud supporter of our podcast network and everything we do. Green Street Trust International, owned and operated by Rennell Jump and UConn legendary men's basketball player Jake Voskuhl. They specialize in tax plans for businesses large or small. They will save you money or get you a big fat return on your taxes. To schedule your free strategic tax planning session today, go to www.greenstreettrust.com. Pete Finch and the Finch Law Firm is located in Bridgeport, Connecticut. If you've suffered any type of personal injury, slip and fall, car accident, your mother-in-law ran you over with her car, your wife got angry one night and decided to stab you, the Finch firm is for you. Pete has won legal battles all across the state of Connecticut. He will go to war to get every dollar you deserve in compensation. You just have to remember, in a pinch, call Finch or go to his website, thefinchfirm.com. Dynamic Human Performance is owned and operated by UConn legendary running back Andre Dixon. He trains boys and girls of all ages, all sports. He has a boot camp program 7 days a week, 6 a.m. You want to get in shape, you go to Andre. He has an athletic development program where he trains boys and girls in the sport of their choice from the ground up, helps them reach their full potential, be the best they can possibly be. Andre has sent boys and girls to college on scholarship for all different types of sports. To work with the best, he has a 5,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility in Hartford, Connecticut. Go to www.dynamichumanperformance.com. All right, and here we are for College Football Clarity. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully, and with me as always, my counterpart, the Rock himself from the Rock Pile, Rocky Corigliano, who has some of the best local sports content around. Don't miss his shows on Thursday and Friday, correct?
Yeah, they'll air Thursday nights, some on Sunday live, but I mix it up a little bit.
Okay. All right, beautiful, because I've been trying to promote everything you're doing. You're doing a great job, and we appreciate it. As we've seen in this area, we need as much coverage as we can. So we were looking at the college football playoffs, and before we get to that, I just wanted to talk about some of the NFL changes that happened. And the first one that comes to mind, John Harbaugh, 18 seasons as the head coach of the Baltimore Ravens. They've made some runs. You know, they've lost in the playoffs several times in the first round. They've lost with Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson's been the league MVP several times. But I was shocked at this one. I did not see this coming at all. I know that, you know, the division was on the line with the game against the Steelers. But what are your thoughts on the John Harbaugh firing?
Well, I think if you go back to that Pittsburgh game, I think you could probably say that if Pittsburgh had lost, it might have been Mike Tomlin that was probably fired by the Steelers,
exactly.
right? So they might have been coaching for their job. As a Michigan guy, I was almost thinking that if he got fired earlier in their year, maybe he would have been a candidate for the Michigan job. I'm not really surprised. I think those tenured coaches like that, Steve, that are in the NFL for so long, I don't think you see a lot of them anymore.
No,
I don't think you see the Mike Tomlins or the John Harbaugh. I just actually read coming down that his agent has had 7 NFL teams, including the New York Giants, which I'm a Giants fan, so I've been suffering for a little while.
Yes, me too.
But I think it was time for a change. I think maybe it went stale. A new voice in that locker room. I mean, listen, he's won a Super Bowl, probably going to go to the Hall of Fame, a great resume with one franchise. So I think it was the right move. But again, I think you go back if they make the kick, in that game and they beat Pittsburgh, we're probably having a different conversation tonight than we would have been.
I know. That's what's so crazy. The 44-yard field goal cost the guy his job. It just blows my mind. And they played this year with Lamar Jackson out for several games, and they still managed to survive without him, win those games, and be there at the end for the division title. So I was really surprised at that. I was surprised. I shouldn't say surprised, but I was surprised Pete Carroll got let go, because I thought that he was a Tom Brady hire, and Tom Brady seems to have a lot of sway with the Davis family. Whatever he says, they kind of do. So I don't know if it was a Tom Brady call. I don't know if it was, the Davis's call, but, the Raiders they were painful at times to watch, and they went all in on Geno Smith, and it completely backfired. They rested their players so the Giants could beat them, and so they could get the number one pick in the draft. Pete Carroll obviously is older. He's younger in spirit and looks young, looks great. Were you surprised that they canned him after 1 year?
No, not really. If you go back and you look at the Raiders over the last 3 or 4 years, I think that franchise is paying 3 or 4 head coaches still.
They are not
salaries.
to coach.
I mean, I think where they failed at is they went all in on Geno Smith, and he was horrible. I mean, he led the league in interceptions. I think he had 20 something interceptions.
Yeah.
And I think down the stretch they tanked purposely to get the top pick, in the draft. I love Pete Carroll. I've always liked Pete Carroll. I liked him when he was in college. I liked him when he was in the NFL. But when you're riding with Geno Smith the entire season, there wasn't really much behind him. So I'm not surprised, but I'll say this. If Tom Brady wasn't involved in that search, he's got to be involved in this search going forward for the Raiders, because they can't miss again. And now you got a lot of coordinators that are up for these jobs. You got a lot of now John Harbaugh's in play. And again, maybe the Raiders have reached out to his campaign. They got to hit a home run on this next hire.
No, they do. They do. And you're right. My dream as a college coach, when I was coaching at Holy Cross, I wanted our head coach to get a big time job, go with him, sign like a 2 or 3 year deal as an assistant, then get fired, then get paid not to coach. That was my dream. I just wanted to get paid not to coach. And that's what the Raiders are doing right now. They're paying coaches not to coach. And then there's the whole Gruden situation.
Yep. I would love to. I'm a huge John Gruden guy.
I am too.
I love watching his stuff on TV. I think he's phenomenal. I know he made a mistake, whether he gets another shot in the NFL. But, Steve, I don't know why he hasn't gotten a call for some of these college jobs.
Yeah, I don't either.
There's got to be more to it. Maybe they don't want the drama that comes with Gruden. But, man, I'll tell you what, you talk about a guy that's intellect for football, there's nobody better than John Gruden.
I love listening to him on Barstool. He's a perfect fit for them. And his knowledge, especially, he spent his early years at the college level, and he did a phenomenal job, and he's always been at the NFL. But I'm with you on that. I'm like, how can you not hire this guy? How does this guy not have a job? And to me, we did a podcast on this. I think that the email thing was a targeted campaign against 100%. Them, because it was the only emails released.
Yep.
You didn't see emails from Snyder. You didn't see emails from any of the other coaches. All you saw was Gruden, who wasn't even a coach at the time. He was with ESPN, and he had to resign, and now he's suing, and the case passed summary judgment. They tried to get it dismissed. It's not dismissed.
No.
It's moving forward. I think it's going to get settled, and I think that he will be back coaching again. But yeah, I'm totally on board with you with that. The other one, I was somewhat surprised. Jonathan Gannon of the Cardinals. Now, I am not a Kyler Murray fan. I think he's overrated. I think they paid him way too much. And I think Gannon was married to him and he did the best he could. But Kyler Murray, I just don't see as being an elite quarterback. And I think that's what killed Jonathan Gannon because he was brought in to mold Kyler Murray and make him into something special. And, it just didn't happen. He almost regressed, I would say. And he's
Yeah,
had injuries.
I was more surprised. I was a little surprised at that one, and I'll agree with you on the Kyler Murray thing. I think he's went downhill over the last 2 to 3 years, and nowadays, just like in college, if you got to have the quarterback, right? If you miss out on the quarterback, you're in big trouble. I
You
was
don't.
really surprised at the Raheem Morris firing in Atlanta,
Oh, yes.
only because I thought they played better down the stretch. Like the last 5 or 6 games, I mean, they were a game away from winning the division. They don't
They
lose to the
were.
Jets earlier in the year, and they get a little help here at the end of the season. They win the division. So I was a little surprised that he got fired because, again, I thought they made some steps in the right direction. How Aaron Glenn still got a job is beyond me. That whole the Jets are a complete debacle. Again, I'm a Giants fan, so I mean I had to suffer through this year too, but I have a lot of hope. I'd love for the Giants to get John Harbaugh. I keep hearing Kevin Stefanski, his name come
Yep.
up for a lot of these jobs too, and so we'll see what happens. But not as many coaches fired today
No.
as I thought there would have been. I mean, once the playoffs are over, maybe more, but I don't see any of those guys in the playoffs. There's a lot of guys that are on the borderline, like maybe safe, not safe. Like Mike McDonald in Miami, is he safe? Is he not safe? I don't know. We'll see what happens. So I'm sure there'll be more coaches that'll be on the hot seat.
Yeah, the Miami coach I thought for sure was going to be gone because he moved on from Tua. They went to Quinn Ewers and he played okay, but he was brought there specifically for Tua and he had him rolling. And then, they lost in the first round of the playoffs last year to Kansas City. Or maybe it was the second round, but they couldn't play in the cold. They lost to them. And since then, they have just been absolutely atrocious. And he could not get anything going with them. And he seemed to have lost the locker room.
Mhm.
Tua was calling out the players in his press conferences. So I that one surprised me that he's still there. Raheem Morris, 100%.
Yeah.
They played great down the stretch. They were right there at the end for a division title. I think he won his last 4 in a row, maybe 5.
Yeah.
And I know it was his third year. They fired him and they fired the GM. I thought that was premature. Kevin Stefanski, I thought, was kind of put in an impossible position because he wasn't really given a quarterback.
No.
He was given Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and a senior citizen, Joe Flacco, as his quarterbacks. It's like, you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit. I mean, it's tough to do. So I feel for him, and I think he would be a great fit for the Giants. The Giants, I think, are going to be a team they have a tough schedule next year. I was very surprised to see the schedule that they got, but with Neighbors back, with Scatterborough back, I think they need a receiver and a lineman and a couple guys on defense, and they're right there. I really do think they're right there.
I think it's the best job that's open right now. You got your franchise quarterback in Jackson Dart. Malik Neighbors is coming back next season. Scatterboo comes back, next season. I think they'll add some offensive line this offseason. Defensively, they got two great edge rushers. That defense was I think the defense underperformed a little bit this year, but I think
They did.
if I'm like a John Harbaugh, I say to myself, "Where's the most attractive job?" The Giants got some first round draft picks, as
Yep.
well this coming season. So I think, again, if I'm the Giants or if I'm like at Arizona, I call him immediately and I try to get the deal done before somebody else gets him. He's got to be the hottest name out there right now after today.
Yeah, I think so too, because of his track record. He's won a Super Bowl. He's had Lamar Jackson, who's been the MVP several times. I think that absolutely he's going to be in the mix, and I think he's going to get picked up pretty fast, if not by the Raiders. I mean that should be their first call. Then the Giants should absolutely look at him or Stefanski. But yeah, the coaching carousal is always interesting to watch. Tennessee was the other one. They let go their coach. Was it Callahan? I can't remember who it was, but was that his name? Was it Brian Callahan?
Yeah, that's such a weird because I was a huge Mike Vrabel guy. And I think
Oh, I
you and I
know.
I think we've talked about this is I'm the Michigan guy and Vrabel's an Ohio State guy, but I love Mike Vrabel. I had always said if Ryan Day at Ohio State leaves for an NFL job, that I would hire Mike Vrabel at Ohio State in a heartbeat. I think he's the perfect fit. And you see what he's done this year in New England with Drake May potentially the MVP of the league. He
MVP.
got him as what the 2 or 3 seed, in the AFC. How they let him go is beyond me.
Yeah, I was blown away by that last year, and I think it's the ownership of Tennessee, the stunk lady who took over, but Raheem Morris, he again was put in a tough position because they had drafted Michael Penix Jr. last year
Yep.
after signing Kirk Cousins. And you have two quarterbacks, you have none. They had to go with him, and then he tore his ACL. Cousins comes in, they do a nice job. They finish things out and show what they're capable of doing. They have a young roster. I think that's a good job as well. So we'll see what happens there. But turning to the college football playoffs.
Yes.
Well, I think we're pretty much undefeated on this one, except for Georgia. Did you pick Georgia or Ole
Yeah, I
Miss?
was gonna say if you did the FanDuel college football clarity picks, we would have been one loss. But people
That
would
was
have
it,
made
right?
money if they listened to us because we both liked Miami. So
Yes.
if you
Yep.
bet Miami money line and you bet them getting the points, you made yourself some money. I know we'll get into the games, but yeah, I mean Georgia was the only loss. I think I was surprised, maybe like some of the others, to see how well Ole Miss again played, how well they moved the ball up and down the field, and that Georgia defense that I talked about on a couple of shows. I thought Kirby Smart had those guys playing really well the second part of the season. I just thought that game with Ole Miss not having Lane Kiffin finally would have caught up to these guys. But I'll tell you what, I think we talked about it last week when we talked about these games. Charlie Weiss Jr. called a gem of a game for Ole Miss on offense
He did.
because Georgia couldn't stop him. So credit him and that
And
offensive staff for having those kids ready to play.
I think Ole Miss is in like FU mode because our coach left and we want to prove everyone wrong. Nobody believes in us, and that's their attitude coming out. And now, what's even more interesting is Lane Kiffin pulled back two or three of the coaches that he had sent to Ole Miss for the playoffs had to return. But they let Charlie Weiss stay, and they let one of the other receivers coach stay. But I thought that was interesting that because Golding said that he had conversations with Kiffin, with LSU throughout, constant communication about what was going on. Nobody expected them to go this far. So, yeah, I agree with you. But starting with Indiana and Alabama, we both said this is Indiana's year, Kurt Signetti. And I just have to say, wow. Like, this was a beatdown, an absolute beatdown. And everyone who criticized that Alabama got in, they won the first round. They go and they play Indiana. Now, let me ask you this. What are your thoughts on the buys and the layoff? People are saying that the layoffs are too long, and that's what's causing some of the problems with the teams that get rewarded with buys. Do you believe in that?
Yeah, I do, because if you watch those games other than Indiana, who, again, came out firing on all cylinders, and, Cignetti had those guys ready to play from the start. And I think it looked like Alabama almost quit, and I think we talked about this the last time. I never thought I'd see the day where Alabama quit in the middle of a game, but I think Dan Lanning said it best, going into the Texas Tech game. He says, as much as I don't want to say this, he's like, well, this game should have been played in Lubbock, Texas, because Texas was the higher seed. They should have got a home game, and they should have played the week after the first round in the playoffs. Like, why wait so long? Because you get all these teams, and I think they're like, what, 1-6? I think Indiana's the only team.
Indiana's the only one, that had a bye in one. Yes.
So you get a team that's playing really well, and then you give them a month off. I mean, Ohio State looked terrible the first half against Miami, and then all of a sudden the second half, it's like I kept telling my wife, well, Miami can't stop them. Ohio State's throwing the ball all over the field. They started looking like Ohio State. So they looked like that they were a little sluggish. That's a long time to wait to play a football game.
It is. And I don't know how you manage it, because you obviously have finals. You obviously have to give the kids some time off. You do want to give them rest to help them heal, but you got to ramp them up, because they have to be ready to go from the get-go. You can't afford to start rolling in the second half and expect to win.
No.
You got to be rolling from the start. And that's what we have seen out of a lot of these teams. Now, Indiana, Mendoza, 14 of 16, 192 yards, 3 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, unbelievable from the Heisman Trophy winner. He proved it. He is someone that is truly special. And what's even crazier, they already got his replacement. They got in the transfer portal. They have a quarterback that came in. I think he's from TCU, who is already set to replace Mendoza. So they already went out and got his replacement. They rushed for 215 yards, 50 carries for 215 yards. I never thought that I would see that against an Alabama defense. Did you expect them to get knocked around that much? I mean, we talked about it before they played Ohio State, how physical Indiana was. But did you expect them to push around Alabama like they did?
Yes and no. I think with Indiana, what's really surprising to me and how good they are is, number one, they're really disciplined. I said it on my show last night that I aired today. I said Indiana is one of the most disciplined teams that I've seen in the last 10 to 15 years. Steve, they don't make a lot of mistakes. They got 2 backs that, the Hemby kid, Kalen Black, the other back, they're both over 150 something carries on the year.
And they're physical.
The Hemby kid's over 1,000 yards rushing. Black's almost, I think, to 1,000 yards. When you have 2 backs at almost 1,000 yards rushing, and you got the Heisman Trophy winner, throwing the ball all over the yard, it just sets Mendoza up so much. The kid hasn't been rattled, all season. The Penn State game, he made the big throw late in that game. The game in the Big Ten title game against Ohio State, the first or second play, he got rocked. I thought he got knocked out.
I remember that. We thought he was done.
Yeah. So I'm texting my wife saying, Ohio State fans are going to love this. Mendoza gets knocked out. This is an Indiana team. And again, there's a lot of good storylines with all four of these teams. You got the Lane Kiffin, talk with Ole Miss, so they keep finding ways to win. You got the Signetti story, the coach of the year in the Big Ten, Indiana going from where they were 2 years ago to where they're at now, Heisman Trophy winner. And then you look at Miami, who can say, nobody thought we should be in. And here we are. Not only are we in, we may win the whole damn thing. And then you got the Ole Miss story, you got the Miami, you got Oregon and Dan Lanning sitting back there saying, guys, we've only lost one game.
Yeah,
We've only lost to Indiana. So I think it's four good storylines. They should both be two really good games this week.
Exactly. And I believe the black kid from the running back from Indiana, he averages more yards after contact than anyone in the nation. So that's a big deal as well. But Alabama, I mean, Ty Simpson looked completely rattled. He was getting chased around. He was getting hit. They put in Mac. He ended up leading the team in passing, 103 yards. Ty Simpson led the team in rushing with 17 yards.
Yep.
So everyone who complains about Kalen DeBoer, what do you think? I mean, do they have a right to be upset with him? Is he underachieving at Alabama? Where do you see them making mistakes the most?
Well, I think you could say in year two they improved and they got to the SEC championship game in year two under Kalen DeBoer. Now they won 9 games, which again at Alabama it's almost like you got to win national championships, or bust. But I think the big thing that I was surprised at with Alabama this year is they couldn't run the football. And especially against Indiana. I mean, if you can't run the football and you're going to just try to drop back and pass, really against any defense, but Indiana's built different. I think that's what's hurt Alabama all year. And I go back and I say, you look at Nick Saban's teams in the past, dominant run game, right? Dominant run game. They play good run defense. They got athletes all over the field. And now it's like I don't see that the last couple of years with Alabama. Ty Simpson, we talked early in the season, he was like a Heisman candidate midway through the year. And then he had the injury, and then, man, he just went downhill because they couldn't run the ball.
Fell off a cliff,
I'm a little surprised at that, and I know that people are going to say that, maybe Alabama didn't belong in, and I know we talked a lot about that. But I think, Kalen DeBoer's got to win next year. And when I say win, he's got to win 10 games next year. He's got to compete. He's got to get back to the playoff, because if he comes out of the gate and he struggles, he doesn't survive. And I like him. I like him a lot.
I like him too. And I agree with you. I agree. He could be somebody who, is a midseason fire if they're struggling, if they lose a couple games early out of the gate. And playing that SEC schedule, now that they're going to 9 conference games, there's no room for error. No. It's such a small margin for error. And, that's the other reason they're kind of making excuses for SEC teams is they're playing such a tough in-conference schedule. They're beating each other up. So by the time they get to the playoffs, they're not healthy. Yep. But I just think, you know what? You added all those teams. Sorry, you own it. I mean, if you didn't want it that way, you didn't have to add Texas. You didn't have to add Oklahoma. You did, and this is the result. This is what you get.
And those SEC homers are going to be so mad that if Indiana or Oregon win this whole thing, that's 3 consecutive years a Big Ten team wins the national championship.
I love it. Anything to throw it in the SEC's face. So Ole Miss, Georgia. Georgia was a 3 seed. Ole Miss was the 6 seed. Okay. So halftime, 21-12. Georgia seems like they're in control. They had a 21-point second quarter, and then Ole Miss wakes up. Trinidad Chambliss, the Ferris State transfer, 30 for 46, 362, 2 touchdowns. And they had Lacey, who rushed for nearly 100 yards.
Yep.
He had 4.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. They rushed for 111 yards overall. And then, Georgia, Gunnar Stockton was 18 of 31 for 203 with a touchdown. They ran the ball okay. 37 carries overall, 124. Frazier had 86 yards. He averaged 5.7 yards a carry. But the second half, Ole Miss just came alive. Trinidad Chambliss is absolutely unbelievable. I know there was a report out there that LSU was possibly tampering with some of the Ole Miss players. That was an issue. Chambliss is already locked up. They put in a waiver for his 6th year to come back because he played Division II.
Yep.
They don't count the year. So he's probably gonna get a 6th year. But this one really shocked me because Kirby Smart has been in these situations before. He's won national championships. He had already beaten Ole Miss. I thought that they were going to roll Ole Miss. I didn't think it was even going to be close. And boy, oh boy, was I wrong. I mean, they came out in the second half, guns blazing. They made some adjustments. They, they rode on the back of Trinidad Chambliss. And that's what I thought made the difference. They said, this is our guy. Let's go to him. And then they have so much talent at receiver with Harrison Wallace, with Sterling. And, look at that. 9 catches, 156 yards, 7 catches, 122 yards. Just offensively, they're a juggernaut. And I expected more from the Kirby Smart defense, like you said. Didn't you think defensively they would have a better game plan for Chambliss?
Well, I would say this. The first time these two teams played, Ole Miss dominated the game. Ole Miss should have won the first game. I think with this game, what surprised me a little bit was, Ole Miss has obviously the storyline is Trinidad Chambliss, which it should be. Kawan Lacey, the running back, is a really good running back. I mean, they got weapons all over the field. They almost remind me like in college basketball, the run and gun up in style. Let's just push the ball up the floor and see if we can
fly. Yep.
If we can wear you out. But I kept saying, I don't know if Ole Miss is going to be able to stop Georgia and come up with a big stop. And then as you watch that game, every time Ole Miss needed a big stop defensively, they got the stop defensively against Georgia. And then at the end of the day, they just made too many plays. This is, and I'm not going to take any credit for this at all. Midway through the season, as we started to get closer to seeing what teams were going to get in the playoff, and this was even before Lane Kiffin took the LSU job, I said, Ole Miss has a realistic shot to win the national championship because they have arguably the best offense in the country with these skill guys. If their defense can play just an average game and the offense continues to score 30, 40 points a game, they could beat anybody. And to think a kid from Division II Ferris State who came in as a backup quarterback to Austin Simmons, who, by the way, just transferred, out of Ole Miss. And this kid takes over and never looks back. He was by far the best player on the field, hands down, on both sides of the field.
Yeah. I mean, he is a force to be reckoned with, and he'll obviously be a Heisman Trophy candidate going into next year. But again, I thought the same thing. Lacey, he is a tough, physical runner. And you're right. I mean, they outgained Georgia 473 yards to 343. And Gunnar Stockton, I never bought in on. I never thought he was that great. He did throw for a touchdown and he ran for 2 scores. But Chambliss has such great pocket presence because there were several times where he could have been sacked behind the line of scrimmage, and he ran for his life. He avoided those sacks, and he made plays. And one of them was he had a couple completions during the 75-yard scoring drive that ended. I think it was Lacey's second touchdown. And I mean, he's just unbelievable. And I think Georgia also, they went for it on fourth down a couple times. And Chambliss did the same thing. He converted a fourth down play for a 36-yard pass over the middle to the Georgia 8. He found Wallace, and then Lacey had a 7-yard scoring run. And that cut the Bulldogs' lead to 21-19. And from there, Georgia converts a fake punt with a reverse pass, and that sustained a drive, and they got a field goal out of that. That put them up 24-19. But then Ole Miss drove down and took a 27-24 lead. Yep. Georgia, this is what I thought was stupid. Georgia ran. They went for it again on fourth down. They were in their own territory, and Stockton got sacked. I thought that was a very, very poor call. I thought, you're down 3. Are you really that scared of Ole Miss's offense that you can't punt and try to get a stop? They felt they had to go for it. And as soon as that happened, Chambliss threw a beautiful, it was, one of those back shoulder fades, which is, if you have the timing down right, it's unstoppable.
Yep.
And he completed it to Wallace. That put him up 34-24. So I just think the takeaway, in my opinion, Kiffin put this team together. He led them to an 11-1 regular season record. He leaves for LSU, and it was traumatic for Ole Miss fans. It was traumatic for Ole Miss players, but it has not stopped the team from forging ahead under Golding. And I give Golding so much credit. He was put in probably one of the most difficult situations because he has a staff that's still there. He has a staff from LSU working for him. And, they're putting together game plans, and now they're 2-0. He's 2-0 in his coaching career in the college football playoffs.
So this is what I would say, because
huge.
You bring up a really good point, and some people don't like when I say this because, I'm a Lane guy, and people say, well, what Lane did was dirty. It's a business decision. I mean, I get the decision. But I'll say this, and I don't think you're wrong with anything you're saying. I was impressed with Pete Golden, too, of how he handled the whole situation. But I think having a guy that's called plays all year on the staff still through this time where you don't have to worry about the offense helps. But here's what I would say, and this is where people will get on me, and I know people have, and it's fun to talk about, is I will say this. Lane Kiffin left. Lane Kiffin not only built this team, Steve, he left this team in really good shape. This is a really good football team. You just can't screw it up. So they're winning, and I know people will say they're winning despite Lane Kiffin not there, and you see like Chambliss is saying he wants to stay. Lacey wants to stay. They're saying they don't need Lane Kiffin. And maybe the players didn't like him. I don't know. I guess we'll never know. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves.
I think they're bitter, obviously.
They probably are. But, when some of them jump in the transfer portal for more money, we're not going to say, well, somebody bailed on, on Ole Miss. But this is Lane's team. He built it. And this is a credit to the job he did over his, 5 years that he was there. He left this program in really good hands. But here's what I would say. What if Charlie Weiss wasn't able to coach and call plays? would this offense
Yeah,
look the
I
exact
think they'd
same?
be a mess. Yeah, no,
Two
I agree with
coaches
you.
I think are staying. I think it's, I think Charlie
Yes,
Weiss, I think the running back coach, and I think this morning I heard maybe the tight end coach. I'm not 100% sure. So you still have the guy that's been calling plays all season. So I think that helps.
the most important guy that they need. And I know that Golding said they have a huge staff and they could make up for it. But Charlie Weiss Jr. has been the MVP in my mind, other than Kurt Signetti, of the coaches in this journey throughout the playoffs. He has called miraculous games.
Mhm.
He has such a good mindset of setting plays up. He puts his players, I always say this, put your players in the best position to succeed. Don't ask them to do things that they're not capable of doing. You know, if your quarterback can't throw a field out, don't have him throw a field out. Have him throw a hitch. Have him throw a slant. Have him throw an in. You know, and I think that's what he does. He gets the most out of his players because he puts them in the best position to succeed. So kudos to them.
Yep.
And I think they're in FU mode because of Lane Kiffin leaving. But yeah, it is a business. And yeah, you know what? Who isn't going to take $12 million a year and the contract that he got? I can't remember if it was 10 years or 8 years or whatever, but he got a massive contract and it's a business. College football is a $1 billion industry.
Steve, he won. As Ole Miss wins, he gets paid.
He gets paid
$900,000. $900,000. If they win again, he'll be at like $1.5 million for not even coaching Ole Miss. So what more of an Ole Miss fan could Lane Kiffin be right now?
He loves it.
I need his agent, man. I need his agent.
I know. I think he's got Jimmy Sexton.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, what he did at Ole Miss, it was so challenging to get recruits and transfers to go there. And he built that program the last 3 years into a juggernaut. And he found a diamond in the rough with Trinidad Chambliss. So you're right. He built this team, and he's watching the fruits of his labor. Whether he's coaching them or not, they're his kids. They're playing with his style. They're playing with his offense, and that's why they're having success. So you got to give him credit there. Now, I would say upset of the week, even though you and I both predicted it, Oregon, Texas Tech, 23-0. Now, I was nervous in the first half because Oregon had several opportunities. They had good field position. They were moving the ball, and they got field goals. They got stuck and had to punt a couple times. I was nervous, and then they just played incredible defense, which was I was not expecting. But Moore, he didn't play spectacular. He was 26 of 33. And then, they had Davidson, 42 yards rushing. TCU, Morton was 18 of 32 with two interceptions. The two interceptions blew me away. He threw into like double coverage a couple times. He looked like he was under duress, and Dante Moore, he wasn't spectacular, but he did enough with the 234. They didn't run the ball as well as I expected. I mean, they had 47 carries, 64 yards, 1.4 yards a carry. But you have Texas Tech, they had 30 carries, 78 yards rushing. They averaged 2.6 yards a carry. And then, receiving wise, They had, Terrence Carter, nine receptions, 72 yards. But Morton really underperformed. And I was shocked because I did not think the Ducks defense was that good. Were you expecting Oregon to play that well defensively that they would shut out Texas
No,
Tech?
I wouldn't have saw that coming. I
We
think
thought it
that
was going to be a shootout, right?
yeah, I mean, I thought the Morton kid for Texas Tech, had a couple interceptions down in the red zone. I mean, Oregon really didn't wow us on offense in that game. They struggled to run the football, which doesn't surprise me because that Texas front is as good as anybody's in the country. But if you look at the last 2, 3 weeks of the season, Texas Tech struggled on offense. They struggled to move the ball at times towards the end of the season. They were built on that defense. They were built with that front four. The Rodriguez kid, the linebacking crew are two of the best linebackers in the country. I thought he should have been invited to the Heisman Trophy presentation. But I'll tell you what, I said this early, and I've said this the last couple of shows and a couple other podcasts that I've done. Dan Lanning is pissed off because nobody is talking about Oregon. I
You're
think
right.
they have that mentality right now where just keep picking against us. They can beat Indiana. And I know we'll talk about that and stuff. Will they? I don't know. But, it was a really good game down in Eugene when those two teams played last. Oregon can run the football. They're physical up front. I think that's going to be a really good game. I don't think that Texas Tech has seen the speed that Oregon showed all year because Texas Tech didn't really play a lot of the good teams in the Big 12. But again, I love Joey McGuire. He's one of my favorite coaches in college football. They spent a lot of money in the offseason to build that roster.
They did.
And it showed. I mean, they had a good season, but Oregon's pissed off, man. Dan Lanning is ready for another shot.
He is. He wants to get back to that championship game more than anyone, and he's doing a phenomenal job. So the last game, and we both called this Miami, Ohio State. And we both talked about, and you especially talked about, the advantage Miami had in the trenches.
Yep.
And it showed. And listen, I'm not a Carson Beck guy. I think he's been underperforming all year for the money that he's being paid. He's being paid $10 million or whatever. He had, he was 19 of 26, 138 yards. He had the one touchdown. Sayin, 22 of 35, 267, one touchdown, but the key, the 2 interceptions. And you can't make mistakes like that. And then Miami, I don't know who ran faster, Michael Irvin or Mark Fletcher. 19 carries, 90 yards. He had 4.7 yards a carry. And Jamar Brown, he had 5.2 yards per carry. He had the touchdown. But it was just great to see the U looking like the U. And, I'm a big fan of Bo Jackson. I think he is going to be something special. But the turnovers absolutely destroyed Ohio State. And they came back. They came back. Miami took a 14-0 lead into the half. And then, Ohio State had those 2 scores in the third and the fourth quarter. Jeremiah Smith, 7 catches, 157 yards, and a touchdown. Carnell Tate, I thought they could have gotten more out of. He only had 3 catches, 37 yards. They did a good job shutting him down. But, I didn't think that – well, we thought it was going to be low scoring. We thought Miami was going to win. I did not expect them to come out and really beat them by 10. I thought it was going to be like a 3-point game, a 4-point game, but they pulled it off. And Carson Beck, he's $10 million. You're paying him $10 million. He's really a game manager. He's not turning the ball over. He's not making mistakes. He's making plays when you need him to. and they're running the ball. They had 153 yards rushing. Ohio State only had 45 yards rushing. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I said this when we talked the last time. I said this game would be won in the trenches. I had Miami 16-10, so I was looking pretty good for a little while with my score prediction. But, the pick six, obviously, for Ohio State. I thought Ryan Day was a little shaky calling plays in the first half. He hadn't called plays all
That's
season.
exactly what I thought, too.
And I know like a lot of the commentators, Urban Meyer on Fox had said that, Ryan Day will be okay. He's called plays for the Buckeyes, for a long time. I thought the first half they were sluggish. The second half, I mean, let's be real. They had a holding call on them that ended up being a big deciding factor because they were moving the ball at ease, in that second half. But, Miami, going back to the Carson Beck point, he kind of reminds me of the Ravens team, I think, with Trent Dilfer when they won a Super Bowl where Trent just managed the game.
Trent Dilfer, yes.
That front for Miami gets after the quarterbacks. I think where Miami's really good is on third and long. You don't want to be in third long against that pass rush. And, I think what Miami's been able to do is they've been able to dominate up front. In that fourth quarter, that last drive, I think Miami ran the ball, 5 minutes? The last
they ran the clock
game,
out.
They just ran the clock out. They reminded me of the Michigan team a few years ago that won the national championship, how Jim Harbaugh built the team I kept saying, build the team from the inside out. When Michigan can line up and just run the football, play really good defense up front, and that's what Miami did. And, there's a lot of talk, and I'm not saying this is going to happen. Jeremiah Smith's from Miami. And there was a lot of pictures of Jeremiah Smith after the game talking to the Miami players. And the Ohio State coaches at one point came up to Jeremiah Smith and kind of pulled him away from coaches. And I keep seeing posts on Twitter, and I know they're fake accounts saying, well, rumors have it he wants to transfer and go back home, to Miami, because it's crazy that he's got to come back for another year because he would have been the number one pick in the draft last year. And I think obviously he'd be 1, 2, or 3 in this year's class too. But Miami's on a roll, man. They're physical, and hats off to Mario Cristobal because he was a winner at Oregon. Knox was win the big game there, and here he's got his alma mater a game away from playing, for a national championship.
And they had 5 sacks. That's what I was most impressed with: the 5 sacks and the 7 TFLs. But yeah, Carson Beck is the Trent Dilfer. Brad Johnson when they won the Super Bowl with the Bucks in 2001, the game manager, which I never
won it.
I never would have expected it out of him, because they pay them so much money. I thought he was going to be airing it out all over, but he did what he was supposed to do, and they won the game, and they are moving forward. So we are going to the Final Four. Four. So, Miami, Ole Miss. Miami is -3.5. Now, this is in Arizona, which again, it's tough. They're playing these crazy locations. So, Miami is -3.5. They're the 10 seed. Ole Miss is the 6. And this is a tough one to pick. Ole Miss, Miami. Ole Miss, they're in FU mode. They've been playing great without Kiffin there, even though it's his team. Trinidad Chambliss, I take all day over Carson Beck. But the Miami front, the Miami defense, what do you see for this game?
Well, we talked about a lot of keys that I've already talked about a little bit was the run game. But I think one of the big questions for me is going to be how well does Miami handle the pace of Ole Miss's offense?
Right,
because Ole Miss's offense this year is averaging over 70 plays per game. And Miami doesn't rotate a lot of players on defense. So how well can Miami handle the pace of Ole Miss, stay fresh? Can they rotate guys in and out of the game? And then I think the other thing for me is going to be how well does Carson Beck play? Carson Beck made some plays with his legs against Ohio State on 3rd and long.
He did,
if they can keep him upright, my question is going to be too, is let's say that Miami can't stop Ole Miss. I don't know if Miami can win in a shootout. against Ole Miss.
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think they can score enough points with the way Carson Beck's been playing. Yeah, you're absolutely right. If Trinidad Chambliss keeps playing the way that he's playing, and offensively with the tempo, like you said, 70 plays a game, the way they run the ball, the way they pass the ball, Miami, it's going to be a struggle to keep up with that. So, I mean,
And the only other stat line that I'll throw in there for you is I think the third down, whoever wins the third down, who can get off the field, because Miami has held an impressive number. They held Texas A&M and Ohio State 11 of 28 on third down. So that's 39%. Ole Miss has struggled on third down in this playoff. They're only 8 of 24. So Miami's been really good on third down, their defense. Ole Miss has struggled on third down. So who can get off the field? Who makes the most plays? At the end of the day, if Trinidad Chambliss goes Houdini, in this game, Ole Miss is going to find a way to win this football game.
I have to go with Ole Miss. I have to go with Ole Miss because, like you said, I just think they can outscore Miami very, very easily, and they're going to put up numbers. They put up numbers all season. They put up numbers in the playoffs. If they score 35 points, is Miami going to be able to score 38, 39? I just don't see that happening unless, Miami got that pick six against Ohio State, which helped them. You take that pick six away, it's different. So I 100% go with Ole Miss. The over-under is 52. I am taking the over.
So I really want to pick Ole Miss in this game because I think I'm using the basketball terminology, but they're the run and gun, get up and down, score a lot of points and play, the fast pace and score 90 points in basketball. And I think Miami's the opposite. I think Miami wants to slow it down and play in the half court in this game. So I really want to see Ole Miss win, but
it's going to be a clash.
I'm going Miami 26-17. My dad always told me offense wins games, defense wins championships.
Defense wins championships. You're 100%
defense
right.
for Miami, their ability to run the football. I think Carson Beck will make some plays, and I think they're going to punch their ticket to play in the home state of Florida for the national championship. How crazy is that?
That is crazy. That is crazy. It was like when Tampa played at home for the Super Bowl. And yeah, 100%. If Miami plays as tough as they have defensively, if they slow Ole Miss down and they can control the tempo of the game, Miami absolutely can come out of this victorious. And again, prove the doubters wrong who said they shouldn't have even been in the playoffs. Oregon, Indiana. This one's a little trickier. Dan Lanning, he's pissed.
Yeah.
Kurt Cignetti, it's his year. Indiana, -3.5. The over-under is 47.5. And it is in Georgia, their Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, also known as the Georgia Superdome. Who do you like here?
Man, I love both coaches.
I do too. I think both coaches have been phenomenal all year, and I think both teams.
I love both stories. I love the Cignetti thing in Indiana. I love everything about this Indiana team. I just don't see many flaws in this team. I think Oregon's going to have to play like a perfect game, to beat them. I know it's on a neutral field. Can Indiana run the ball against that Oregon defense? Can Oregon run the ball against that Indiana defense up front? That's one of the best rush defenses in the country. Can they disrupt Mendoza a little bit and fluster him in the pocket? But at the end of the day, I just think they have too many ways they can win, as Indiana does. I think they're going to.
Well, you mentioned discipline too. The discipline, I think, plays a huge factor.
A lot of mistakes.
No.
If Indiana blows them out, I wouldn't be surprised. But I'm going to say it's close again. I think Indiana. I got them like 27-20. Touchdown. I got them basically leading this game late the entire game, and I'm going to give Oregon 20 points. But man, nobody's really scored on Indiana. they're going to have to turn it over. I mean, they're really going to have to make a lot of mistakes that they haven't made all year.
I think Indiana being the first team that was able to win coming off a bye was critical, sends a message. And I also am going with Indiana. I just think Kurt Signetti, he's going to be coach of the year. I think this is Indiana's year, regardless of who wins the next game. I think Indiana is built to last from top to bottom, from up front, from Mendoza, from the receivers, from their running backs. Man, their running backs run hard. And then defensively, they're so physical, they're so tough. So, yeah, I'm going with Indiana as well. And I would probably, I would pick the under as well. I would go 28-24. So there you have it. Great show. I like the picks. We've been doing very, very well with our viewership. We got an extra 5,000 views in the last couple days. So we are continuing to roll, and I appreciate everything that you're doing. I am going to end this, and then I will text you after about the Utica College thing once I get the schedule.
Sounds good.
If you want to come commentate the game. But you were good to go, my friend. The Rock from the Rock Pile. Don't miss his shows. The best local sports coverage around. He has Thursdays, Fridays, Sundays. He has shows everywhere, and it's all local sports. I loved how you gave some attention to the Rome women's basketball player. I called that game. The Twins.
What are their names? Yeah, you had Haley Boswick that scored her 1,000th point for Rome Free Academy.
Yes.
And then you had Ella Trinkus for Notre Dame that scored point number 2,000. First-class family, man. I had a really good experience last night meeting the family, and she was so good to my daughter. And that Notre Dame girls team, they are legit, man. They're going to make a run into state championship. They got a good crew. Well coached by Coach Snyder.
They were smoking. Yeah, and I was there when they did the ceremony for the RFA girls, so it was great to see. Great to see for the area.
Yep.
The Downtown Classic was a great tournament, and they're doing the makeup games this Saturday at Utica College, where I will be broadcasting, and hopefully we can get the Rock there himself. So for the Rocky Corigliano, I am Steve Cully, the best podcast host in the universe. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges, throw them right back in life. Down south, we have Julius Williams and the Trench Mob. Julius trains offensive and defensive linemen. They compete in 5v5 tournaments across the country and also go to college showcase camps. Proud to say they were undefeated at every tournament they attended. Every college showcase camp, a member of the Trench Mob was offered a college scholarship. He's in Decatur, Georgia. If you want to work with the best, work with the Trench Mob, www.battleofthetrenches.com. We have Ned Von Young, Fresh Fold Laundry Company, Chapel Hill, North Carolina. High-end laundry service. They have you book online. You put your laundry out in a clear plastic bag. They pick it up, wash, dry, fold it for you at Land Speed Records. And they also have an online subscription model, weekly or bi-weekly. They offer now a pickup and delivery service, so you can have your laundry done without leaving the comfort of your own home. Again, washed, dried, and folded for you and return to you within 48 hours. They also have an expedited service. They have deals for college students in the area as well. Check out their website, myfreshfold-laundry.com. We also have James Whitfield of Luther James Insurance. For the last 3 years, James has dedicated himself to the art of financial planning. He specializes in insurance policies, mainly life insurance. He will make you a boatload of money, and he will do so tax-free. He understands the stress that comes with retirement planning. How much do I need? For how long? Do we have enough? Because fear of the unknown is real. To connect with James, you can go to his website, www.lutherjamesinsurance.com. Finally, we have Rob Hill of R. Hill Enterprises, Inc. Rob is an accomplished author. He is a speaker, and he also is an insurance mastermind, along with being a minister. Rob will put you in the right insurance plan for you. He understands the constraints and the rules that go with insurance, but he makes sure that you ask the right questions so you get the right answers. His main objective is to pull people's heads out of the sand, because that is what we're dealing with currently. To connect with Rob, you can message him on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, or go to his website, rhillenterprisesinc.com. Again, he also does speaking engagements. He is a phenomenal insurance agent out of Chicago, Illinois, and you should contact him for any advice, even if you don't want to work with him.